Dear audience, welcome to today's TUCS Distinguished Lecture Series. I have the great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, academician Teuvo Kohonen. Teuvo Kohonen started as a physicist after his appointment to associate professor in 1963 and full professor in 1965 in Helsinki University of Technology. He was the first in Finland to launch regular computer engineering curricula. His first book, my hand is shaking. I have to get the paper. No, okay, I'll try. To launch regular computer engineering curricula. His first book is on digital circuits and systems. However, he soon found his own area in autonomic data analysis, which today is a more hot topic than ever. Professor Kohonen has played central roles in international scientific societies, and he has published several books on his research. His breakthrough idea in 1981-82 was the system theoretic model of self-organizing maps, the SOM, which belongs to the clustering and nonlinearly projecting methods, and on which over 10,000 full scientific publications and over 20 books have been written all over the world. Numerous SOM software packages have been developed in various laboratories and businesses. The SOM has been used for data analysis in diverse scientific and engineering fields. And it has had applications, for example, in the analysis of industrial processes, macroeconomic systems, finance, trading economics, text analysis, document search, linguistics, and one can go on and on. A series of international biannual SOM workshops has been held on 4 continents and has continued since 1977. This year's workshop is the 10th and will be held in Mittweida in Germany in July. Professor Kohonen is also recipient of numerous prizes and awards. He is a multiple honorary doctor also from Åbo Academy University. We are very, very pleased to have you here today. And now the floor is yours, Professor Kohonen.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have only nice memories from Turku, and I'm so happy to be again here. And my special thanks are due to Barbara, who has organized all this conference, and about to my wishes of special gadgets what I'm carrying here and so on. Maybe you want to know first how I came at this idea of self-organizing map, because it did not happen overnight. I was perhaps a graduate student sometimes in the beginning of end of 1950s, and I happened to read a couple of articles on learning machines. That was immediately a topic which was interesting to me, and it was before artificial intelligence was actually launched. It was a true artificial intelligence. Then I started to do some ideas in 1970s. First of all, some associative memory models, adaptive distributed associative memories, systems models for them. Then we were working in pattern recognition where we established a national society. We also founded international societies, and our special area was speech recognition. After that, I happened to get an idea. That was in January 1981, the 4th of January, when I found this self-organizing map idea, and it was a completely intuitive idea, which you will notice when I am playing with these gadgets, because I'm explaining to you without any mathematics. So here is my topic, and as usual there is a beginning, middle and end, and in the middle we have just like the biologists say, the method, and then we have the results. So in order that you obtain an overview of any data space, you need some kind of structured representation of the data items. And for massive data, it is obviously impossible to show the relations between all of the individual items. The remedy is to represent the data items by a much smaller set of models. And these models are like local averages. Each stands for a subset of similar or almost similar data items. And then we can construct some kind of structure between the models. And whenever we are identifying an item with one of the models, we know in which structure it resides. The self-organizing map was invented, as I said, on the 4th of January 1981. And the models which are standing for the items, some kind of local averages of the items, they are associated with a regular array, with the nodes of a regular array. These models are not set once and for all. They are created in a learning process. The models are first undefined, and they gradually grow into the final values. So when they have reached their final values, then more similar models will be closer in the array, and less similar models are far away from each other. One can say that the models, or the self-organizing map array, is a kind of similarity diagram. It is a visual display also. Now, here is an example. It is obtained from World Bank. In 2002, we had cooperation with the World Bank. There was a senior researcher called Guido de Böcke, and with his help we got plenty of data from the World Bank by electronic means. And here is a map of countries in 2002. It is a very obsolete picture, but it is the only one that I have now here. So the different countries are described by a number of descriptors, and each descriptor is either an economic descriptor or a health descriptor or educational descriptor. Like the economical descriptors are the gross national product per capita and the debts and whatever assets and so on. The health descriptors describe like doctors per person, or births in the presence of a doctor, and so on. And the educational services mean schools and teachers and so on. So in all there were 39 descriptors, and each country was supposed to be described by 39 descriptors, but many countries did not supply this data. So we decided to compute this map on the basis of incomplete data. So if there was less than 12 descriptors missing, we took these countries and computed this map. But if there were even less, even more descriptors missing, they were not used in the computing of the map. They were just compared with those which were calibrated, and they are the calibration countries are written by capital letters, and these which didn't have complete data which are lowercase letters. So this map is organizing the countries not according to 1 or 2 or 3 coordinates, but it is more like a clustering diagram. Like you have seen here, these countries are the OECD countries, or actually here. Here are very pure countries, and the main difference is that these are poor in all respects. These have better education. And then there are some dividing lines between the countries. So here is if that would be a clustering diagram, there would be a cluster border here, and there are a few cluster borders. How can this kind of map be computed? Well, first of all, I must say that nowadays people are talking much about big data. There is so much electronic data available that we need more refined methods to analyze them. And for their organization and retrieval, we need new methods, and this was one step in that direction. The computation of the self-organizing map takes place in the following way. You can imagine that this array of models is a two-dimensional array where the models are associated with the nodes. So at each node you can have, for instance, a 39-dimensional vector. And these 39-dimensional vectors are computed by the algorithm. And the computing occurs in the following way. Whenever we accept a new data vector, we look which one of these models is most similar to it. Let it be MC, M sub C, which is most similar to X. So in this neighborhood of MC, we make a local learning operation such that MC and all these vectors are turned towards X. They are made more similar. And when we input the different X's, there is always a different best matching model here and the best matching neighborhood. And the corrections are always made in the local neighborhoods. And now I come to this real model. So this is plastic model. The best models are plastic models. So I'm showing you how these vectors, two-dimensional vectors, are organized or ordered automatically. So we may start with random initial values. So I usually say that this is the Monte Carlo method. And here is the input vector. Which one is most similar to it? Well, there may be ties, but let's say that it is this one. So this is now what we call the winner. And we set a neighborhood border here around the winner. And because this was the input, we are turning all these vectors inside the neighborhood towards the input. Not completely, but at least a fraction of it. Next time we take another, maybe it is this one here now. So the neighborhood is this, and we must turn all of these towards the input. And maybe next time who knows, maybe this one here. And you can very soon notice that this array starts to get organized. So for instance, if the input was now like this vector would be moved like this, and so there becomes like a field of vectors now over the array. There's another. So this is what I was doing. Every input data shall select the model which is called the winner that matches best with the input. And this winner model and the subset of its spatial neighbors in some array shall be modified for better matching. Now, I don't show you any single mathematical formula, but I'm showing you the algorithm in a graphic form here. So, assume that you have plenty of input data, and this computation is a batch computation because we are first taking the whole batch of input data. We are distributing the batch of input data so that each input, like x1, is listed under the best matching model here. x2 maybe is listed here under this best matching model, and so we get the list. We get lists under all of the models in the array. When we have found all the winners for all of the input, we set a neighborhood border anywhere. We can start here. We can start at the borders, and we go here into the inside. And then the next step is to compute the average or the mean of these lists which reside in the neighborhood. So this could be a simple arithmetic mean, or it can be any other average like a geometric mean or a generalized median or whatever. And we call this x bar for this model. And when we have computed the generalized medians for all the neighborhoods, I mean for all of these models, we substitute these medians to the existing model all at once in one concurrent operation. So this is one learning step. Then we erase all of these lists, and we start putting the input data again into the lists, find the winners, distribute the input data under the best matching models, find again the medians for all of these neighborhood sets, make a new substitution, and so on. And usually it takes something like 20 to 30 steps to find the kind of equilibrium. Here is another demonstration. In this map, in each node, in each square, we have a randomly selected color. RGB components are taken randomly. Also, the input data are random colors. So this is the initial state of the map. And if the input data are also selected randomly, this map starts self-organizing. And what you get here is the so-called CIE color diagram in 2 dimensions. So white is in the middle, and so it's like here. Many people have developed some software. We were the first who launched such program packages around 1989. And immediately they were downloaded maybe hundreds of times in a few minutes. from the network. That time there was no net, there was no Google, there were only discussion groups or what they call bulletin boards, and they were copied from bulletin boards. Our laboratory has two large software packages called the SOM-Pack and the SOM-Toolbox. The SOM-Toolbox is an extension of MATLAB. It consists of 200 MATLAB functions. Right. It is not possible to give a full account of the theory or the different versions or applications of the SOM in one talk. So I may mention that, or Barbara already mentioned that there were more than 10,000 full scientific publications which are totally based on the SOM. They analyze or develop or apply the SOM. These are not citations, these are full articles which are based essentially on the SOM. However, here are the main statistical methods at large. So, for instance, exploratory data analysis or data mining, how they say, it has been applied on many fields of science. We have found also applications in the analysis and organization of texts, that is natural text like books or articles and so on. One of them is there were a couple of thousand applications submitted to the Academy of Finland. These applications were not used for any grading of them. We just made an experiment whether we can divide them into classes so that these applications could be directed to proper examiners. It was never used officially, so don't be afraid. Industrial analysis have been studied since 1980 or so. There have been applications in pulp mill industries, in paper industries, steel industries, and whatever, pure water purification. That is one of the applications. Of the biomedical analysis and applications, I want to mention a big project which was made by Dr. Merja Oja, the daughter of Professor Erkki Oja. And this application dealt with endogenous retroviruses. I will come to that very soon. Then maybe you didn't hear me. In finance and trade, we were in cooperation with World Bank, and Guido de Boeck and I edited together a book, data, something like data analysis by the self-organizing maps. Then in telecommunications, there are several applications. For instance, we got data from Nokia dealing with the operation of the cells of mobile phones. Each cell has a so-called key performance data, a few dozen of different measurements which could be followed every hour. And we made one map of these data. But as I said, it is impossible to tell you all about this. Only some very special applications can be mentioned. In robotics, especially in the University of Bielefeld in Germany, they have made robots for the manipulations, and one of their special functions was how to twist corks from bottles. that is a very difficult task for usual robots. Now they are making six-legged insects, artificial insects. I don't know for what purpose, but they have a business, flourishing business on them. In our laboratory, there is one self-organizing map for picture databases, so that you can search for pictures on the basis of the visual contents, not by any descriptors or keywords, but by the appearance of the picture. A very special application was in the clustering of galaxies, because one laboratory obtained the Hubble space satellite data, and on the basis of this Hubble data, they were clustering galaxies in the medium distance from here. In the state of Washington, I mean near to Seattle, Washington, on the northwestern side of the United States, the Attorney General of the state was starting a special study to develop a system for the identifying of serial murderers and sexual assaulters. So the system is called CATCH, and it has been used in the state of Washington under the Attorney General. Air France is monitoring plane engines, sending wireless information from the air, and the analysis is done on the ground about the efficiency of their engines during flight. In Finland, one special search engine has been developed for the speeches made by the parliament members during 1 year. So you can see what each one has been talking about, what topic. Then I don't know about this, but I have heard rumors that they are rating the medicine doctors in Australia by the self-organizing maps. I have no references of that, but I do know that there was an interactive artwork made by the self-organizing map. The name of this artwork was Pockets Full of Memories, where there was a very big self-organizing map on the wall, projected on the wall, and people could put different kinds of objects like keys or whatever on table. Camera was looking at them, and it was transferred these objects onto the map. Okay, that was it. Continuous casting of steel, that is a very interesting application. It is done somewhere. It was used experimentally. I don't think that it is anymore in use, but it was used by some Outokumpu companies. So in the continuous casting of steel, the molten steel comes from here, and it is poured onto this kind of mold or extruder, whatever you want to call it. And it runs down, and whenever it leaves the extruder, the outside crust is already solid, and the inside is molten. So it is like some kind of caramel. And the temperature is measured at several points at the mold and followed. And the self-organizing map has been computed on the basis of the sets of temperature measurements. So the pattern of temperatures is very important because if the distribution is not right, there might be a rupture, and the molten steel will run out of the slab onto the floor and to great damage caused. So this is again a real demonstration. Here is the slab of steel. The temperature is shown by these shades of gray here. And the width of this slab is about 1.5 meters. And here is the map. Depending on the particular combination of temperatures, the winner in the map is shown by activation or activity at one node. And when the pattern is changing, the highest activity or winner is moved here along the map. So at these ranges, at these points of the map, the flow here is steady. Here is something suspicious already. If the winner is here, if the pattern of temperatures causes a winner being here at the map, then there is a danger of rupture, and here is a rupture, and you can see this from see how the winner is changing here, and rupture. I can take it again, so you have time to look at it. The winner starts here. So this is from a real situation. One of the latest applications in our laboratory was a map of the human endogenous retroviruses. Only about 2% of the human DNA contains genes. But the rest is, I cannot say, but about half of the rest consists of different types of so-called transposable elements, which are like copies of viruses. Some of them resemble retroviruses, but they are not real viruses. They are just have the same information as the viruses. And a special zone was constructed for discover different groups of transposable elements. So human endogenous retroviruses here. So different families could be found. This work was done in cooperation with two professors of medicine in Sweden. When the input items belong to known classes, or you know by experience what they represent, the different models can be labeled or marked by symbolic labels. This kind of calibration of the models can be made by the different kinds of methods, statistically by the k nearest neighbors method. Also, there are so many different SOMs that they can be applied for different applications by selecting different kinds of inputs. And these inputs are frequently special features, like, for instance, in speech recognition, the features are the frequency components of speech. Or if you have another type of physical experiment, the features are measurements of a different variable. And it would be nice if these features were as invariant of each other as possible. But I mentioned also that we can make sums of texts, and for the documents, the features can be just word histograms, like the frequency of different words used in the documents. These features must be weight. Some weights must be put on different words, and one of these weights can be the entropy of the word, the statistical entropy, but another is the inverse document frequency. That is, the document frequency means in how many documents a word occurs, and the inverse document frequency is the inverse of this number. So if the word is in many documents, it has very low information value, and vice versa. So you can select a subset of words from the used words, and you can put weights on them. Here is the system which is called the WebSum. It was originally made for classifying patent abstracts. We got about 1 million, no, 700,000 patent abstracts from different sources like United States, Japan, and Europe. And the abstracts were something like 400 words long. And then some word histograms were made of these abstracts. Some kind of mapping, some kind of transformation was made on the histograms, and then a map of documents was built up. So about 7 million patent abstracts, and the map consisted of 1 million nodes. Of course, you cannot watch at 1 million nodes at a time. You must only display one small part or patch of it, and then you can zoom electronically into the map to see more data. So this is an example. The original map is here at the bottom. Also, this is only one patch of a very large map. And these characteristic words have been annotated by a special rule. So it shows what kind of topics is in the map in this area. When you are clicking with the mouse one area of the map, you get an enlarged picture, and here you see the nodes already. And you start actually by writing some kind of key expression, search expression, like a laser surgery on the corner. And you compute the same kind of word histogram for it, and you compare it with the word histograms in the map, and here is the best match. And you can even see how many matches you see around this best match. And these best matches can be written out, and one of them can be read out. Unfortunately, this system is no longer in operation, but there was another system, the sum of Encyclopedia Britannica. You know that this electronic version of the Encyclopedia Britannica consists of 44 tomes on the shelves, so it is that kind of size. It contained 68,000 articles, and we created 43,000 textual items as some extra. So there were 115,000 documents as source. This size, the size of the sum was only 12,000 nodes in this application. And here, if you can write, for instance, the search expression and find the winner wherever it is. If it is here, and you can click this area, then you can find the articles which are dealing with larvae. If you click this area, the auk is a bird. You can see other birds here. And if you click shark, you don't only obtain the sharks, but you can see how to fish the sharks and so on. One of the applications where I was personally involved, I did this work myself, was a search for similar documents. In the Reuters collections, there are articles on very different topics, and one of our people collected 4,000 subset of documents which were dealing with these topics. They are all economical topics, but they differ from each other. That set 1 is the private sector, section 3 is the governmental sector, then section 2 is more like analysis articles, and the 4 deals with trading markets. Now, in each of these 4 groups, we had 1,000 articles. And here are hits, some kind of histograms on the sum. How many times you can find a different article in what area. So the articles on the private sector were mapped into this corner of the sum. This is the governmental and social area. Here are the methods like indicators and analysis methods. And here are trading of stocks, markets, and so on. Actually, we can label this map by the K nearest neighbor method, and you can see that the articles, the private sector is mapped in this area, the governmental sector is mapped in this area, the methods, this yellowish greenish, they are methods, and you can see that methods are needed here and here and here. And wait a minute, this green is the methods, yes. And the yellowish green is the stocks and commodities trading. I skipped this because I want to come to the conclusions. So the self-organizing map is an automatic data analysis method. It is widely applied to clustering problems and data exploration in industry, finance, natural sciences, and linguistics. And the most extensive applications so far have been made in the management of massive textual databases. I skipped this aspect that you can actually show from what sources an article is coming from. That is a new statistical finding which is called the non-negative least square fitting of models. So you can find, okay, I can go here backwards. So you can find what is the best combination of articles that matches best with the found article or article that you wanted to analyze. So you can see that this nonlinear fitting with non-negative coefficients picks up only a very small number of models which describe this article, usually less than 1% of the models. So I have had plenty of collaborators in this project. The WebSum was made after my retirement from the university in a group where Dr. Samuel Kaski, Dr. Timo Honkel, and Dr. Krista Lagus were present. The Reuters data were obtained from Jarkko Salovjärvi, but I did the work myself. The industrial applications and the software for them, the software packages were developed mainly by Juha Vesanto and Esa Alhoniemi, and the map of retroviruses by Merja Oja. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
We have time for questions, please. Here.
So for the purpose of visualizing some multidimensional data, I guess that it's very nice to get this two-dimensional picture describing it. But if you just want to have a computer program that tells you like what kind of article something you get is, then what about other kinds of grids? If you use like a three-dimensional grid or another neighborhood or something like this, is this? I mean, you only showed these hexagonal grids. Is this the usual best method, or did you just choose it for the sake of presentation?
Yes, it's good that you asked this question, because you must guess that there is plenty of work going on. In Germany, there was one improvement of the display such that they were using a different topology of this map, and they were sort of magnifying the part which they were looking at. This magnified part was like in some whatever computer programs you have, like a magnifying glass. But your question about the three-dimensional displays, there have been some works going on. In Tampere, people were developing three-dimensional maps in order to see what is inside. They were peeling off layers from the map. It was useful, but not so practical, because first of all, the program is very complex, and actually 2 dimensions are already very powerful in showing some kind of topological relationships. It's not, it does not describe the correct topology, but you can search very well with 2 dimensions. Then there are other topologies of the map. I cannot tell you everything, but there are people who are making a growing map, so that they start with some very small array, maybe not rectangular at all, and they start adding new nodes to it until it grows like into a structure of the data. So it creates some kind of not like a clustering structure, which is more accurate in showing you the nature of the data. But again, I must praise that 2-dimensional maps, because it is so practical. And if you add to it some kind of color, shade of color, it was here in Merja Oja's here. You can see that there are dark zones here. They are separating the clusters. So the color is decided in that way that whenever you have models which are very similar, their distance is small, then these are shown by light colors. And if the distance starts getting larger, they are becoming dissimilar. These dark zones appear. So this display is called the Umatrix. I think that it is called after Mr. Ult, who invited it. But anyway, it is a very practical addition to the sum. Did I answer your questions?
Other questions? Yes, please.
About the temporal dimension.
There are some very good mathematicians, especially in Bielefeld. There is Professor Barbara Hammer, who has done much work on temporal data, so that you can somehow describe the temporal similarity when 2 sequences are similar in the time dimension. So you can make a map for the temporal data too. There is also one special map which is described in my book. It is the map of filters. So each node here in the map is like a dynamical filter, which is filtering a kind of waveform. It is like a, what they are called, LPC coefficient filters. And so here you can analyze the temporal signals by putting them in parallel through all the filters, and the filter which is responding best is the matching filter. Well, the Barbara Hammer's work is so complicated I cannot comment it here. But yes.
Yes, please.
I have a general question. So is computational complexity somehow involved in your research or in your approaches?
Yeah. Actually, with our examples, we don't deal with the computational complexity. I might guess that you could somehow develop the better system models or pre-process the data, but my answer is actually no. I don't remember any work which is dealing with computational complexity in this respect.
Yes.
How sensitive is the end map to the initial situation and the order in which you are inputting the data?
Yes, actually I did not forget, but I just ignored this aspect in my talk, because I can tell you that you can initialize the map, the models, either randomly or in an orderly fashion. And one of the best initialization methods is the linear initialization. You take the the principal component, two biggest principal components of the data, you span a plane with them, and you pick up the initial values in an ordered fashion from this plane, an array from the plane of the two principal plane, so to say. And in the program packages, there is a special function for the initialization, and it is something like you are doing in Smith's shop. So you start with a plate, and you want to make some kind of form. You are hammering it, and these maps, like the SOM, are called the malleable maps that you can hammer into the final form.
What about the order? If you input the data in different order, will you get different kinds of maps?
No, it's supposed to be the same, because it is only the distribution. Right. So, I mean, if you have a batch like here, it doesn't matter, because you are doing the updating in one concurrent operation, and so you don't notice the order. But if you are training the map in a different way, so that you are training one item at a time and making correction, then you are must make only very small corrections, so that if you are repeating this training sequence, it doesn't matter in which order the data come in.
I was wondering whether it's like a path-dependent process, whether you have like multiple equilibria, right, and then one of them is kind of coming to like, that is kind of settling down.
So the question is about the local.
Like how many equilibria are there? Or is there
so these.
Tästä
siis oppimisen niistä optimeista vai mitenkä? Siis you.
I was just wondering like how many equilibria are there?
Yes, of course, yes, I understood quite correctly. So, like all nonlinear systems, have plenty of local optima, and one is only the global optimum. Now, also in this self-organizing map, you can end up with local optima, because the training methods only are looking for the whatever stable state, but mostly these local optima are only mirror reflections of the map, so upside down, left, right, or circular symmetry, clockwise or anti-clockwise. So you get something like 8 different local optima. But it seems to me that the global similarity diagram, which is trying to fit to the distribution of the data, is more or less unique. So you can actually measure or compute the degree of fitting. So this is there is one is a quantization error, and another is a topological error or topographic error. If you have a big topographic error, so the map has not reached the data in a smooth way, but it is making some kind of turns. But these are very seldom cases, and if you make a few attempts, trials, and see what comes out, then mostly you can see almost the same map again and again. That I admit that this is an important theoretical question, but when you are working in practice, you learn to see whether the result is right or wrong. theory of the self-organizing map itself is very poor, so that nobody has even given a final convergence proof in general dimensions, but we know whether this result is good or not, because that can be shown by the indicators.
Question here.
Has the method been applied in cryptography? It would seem that it could be a powerful tool in cryptanalysis.
My question is to you is that how do you measure this? Okay. My answer is, how can you define the similarity in cryptography?
Well, you could find similarities in if you have, say a huge number of cryptotext, secret writing text, and then there must be some similarities. Like if you think of Second World War, there were these German things, and so they were. So I think you could find this.
Yes.
I of course don't know, so I would be richer if I did.
However, if you could create a similarity matrix for your items, whatever you are studying, then to make a map for it, starting from the similarity matrix or this distance matrix is elementary. But I cannot imagine now how I could proceed. Maybe it is possible, but also I have not read all these articles which have been published. It would take 10 years for me.
I get the impression that the main use for SRM is in such kinds of applications that a human is observing and operating on this. But how widely used has been in non-interactive applications?
Nonlinear Applica. Non-interactive. Oh, I see. So it was first developed as a visual aid, of course, and some kind of interactive use you can find. Maybe that is not the answer to your question, but here is a very special interactive use of the SOM, and that is the PicSOM, SOM for the searching of pictures. So you have a very big picture database, and first you start showing a few pictures, and the SOM is finding the best matching subsets from the database. And then you think, okay, that what you found is a better search argument. Then you start using that as a search argument, and then the SOM finds again. So that is an interactive use. But so that if you are really talking about interactive use of the SOM, non-interactive, of course, you could develop some kind of pattern recognition method to look at the map, or not look, to analyze the models and the winners, the decoding, use that as a decoding method. So that occurs completely automatically, and by that you can use the map for the control of processes, industrial processes, by using these responses, the winners that you find from the map, to control the actuators. It has been in use already. Yes.
One more question. The argument, the result depends very much on how you measure the distance between observations. So is the basic measure is the kind of Euclidean distance in n-dimensional space, or can you use other measures for distance also?
So actually, this SOM method is incredibly insensitive to the choice of the distance. So we are using Euclidean distances in most applications just for simplicity. But if you use any other metric, you can get almost the same map, but its magnification is different. So you can see the structures, but the details have a different, or maybe it is even warped somehow. But then there are many other applications where you don't use any metric at all. So you can, like I said, you can start from any distance matrix, or you can start from strings or symbols. So some of these sums have been developed for strings or symbols, and these two strings or symbols can be compared, for instance, by the Levenstein metric, that's Russian, Levenstein metric. Levenstein, Russian, certainly. And for the analysis of the viruses and many biophysical data like proteins, people have computed distance matrices by special methods, and you can get them from the net. Like there is a so-called FASTA method, F-A-S-T-A, which is used plenty for the comparison of DNA.
Thank you very much.